Good afternoon. First, let me thank Troy Riddle, our Multicultural Affairs Officer, for putting together the slideshow. As you saw, the slides provide a visual history of the civil rights movement and the life of Martin Luther King, Jr. I want to welcome everyone today to Widener Law School's commemoration of Martin Luther King Day. Today, we are here to celebrate not only King's life of service, but also the service that is rendered by the community that is our law school. King is quoted often as saying that anybody can serve. Widener Law School fosters that belief that anybody can serve by offering ample opportunities for students to serve, be it internships, externships, clinics, or the community service of our numerous student organizations. Faculty and staff also serve, whether representing clients in death penalty cases or domestic violence matters, working with young people at a local high school, drafting amicus briefs, or serving on the board of a local nonprofit. So today we are here to celebrate service. Let us begin the celebration with the announcement of the Martin Luther King Semester of Service. Professor Howe-Barksdale, Director of the Public Interest Resource Center, will present the projects.
Thank you, Professor Williams. Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon. Thank you. To commemorate the birthday of Martin Luther King, Jr., the Public Interest Resource Center invites you to share in the legacy of Dr. King by offering you an opportunity to live his message of service. In pursuit of the ideals of equality and social justice, the law school community is invited to join forces in a comprehensive semester of service. This invitation offers all the members of the law school an opportunity to perform both hands-on labor and pro bono legal services for those in need. If you will look around, you will see these little bookmarks. They were at the ends of the tables, the benches. They have a list of a sampling, because it's a bookmark after all, of some of the projects. Everyone involved in this program is asked to perform at least 12 hours of service by the end of the semester. We invite all participants. The successful participants will be designated MLK Service Fellows and recognized at the PERC Student Award Ceremony. Some of the projects just listed here are the ADA Compliance Project, the Medical Legal Project, Mock Trial Project, Teaching Project, MS Walk, and Homework Help at the Boys and Girls Club, and this is just a sampling. Please connect with us and on Facebook by searching MLK Semester of Service. It will take you to the sign-up links on TWEN. A more detailed description of each project is on Facebook and on TWEN. Please also remember that students perform pro bono service every summer. So on March 20th, the PILA auction will be held, and so we ask that you give to the auction and support the auction in addition to this semester of service. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Professor Howe-Barksdale. Next, we will have the introduction of speaker by Roderick Thompson, who is president of the Balsa chapter here at Widener.
Good afternoon. When Professor Williams first asked me to be a part of the program, I was extremely proud and elated, and I assumed that it was because I am the president of the Black Law Students Association. But in light of the information that the two speakers that we have this afternoon are members of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, I think that she wanted me to, as an alpha man, to break up some of the monotony here. And Dr. King and I actually pledged the same fraternity, the same undergraduate fraternity, and in fact, it was members of my fraternity that actually spearheaded the initial site approval efforts and the fundraising efforts for the Martin Luther King Memorial down on the National Mall. So needless to say, I feel a special kinship with Dr. King. However, my wife, knowing my mild to moderate temper issues, constantly reminds me, sweetie, you and Dr. King both being alphas, that's where the similarities end. Nevertheless, what's the saying? I don't believe God's finished with me yet. Gives me great pleasure to introduce our speaker this afternoon. Peter Harvey is the former Attorney General of New Jersey. He was the first African American to serve in that position. As Attorney General of New Jersey, Mr. Harvey's work included negotiating the 2 largest securities settlements payments in New Jersey history, concerning insider trading and market timing cases, and acting as one of the lead attorneys in several multi-state securities fraud settlements. He sued gasoline stations in New Jersey for illegally raising prices in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. He also sued Blockbuster Video, charging that its fee policy violated state consumer protection laws. Prior to becoming Attorney General in June of 2003, Mr. Harvey served as first Assistant General and the Director of the Division of Criminal Justice. He served as an Assistant United States Attorney for the District of New Jersey, where he tried cases involving financial fraud, organized crime, and bank robbery. Mr. Harvey is a graduate of Columbia University School of Law and Morgan State University. Mr. Harvey served as a law clerk for the Honorable Dickinson R. DeBevoise, United States District Judge for the District of New Jersey. He is currently a partner at Patterson, Belknap, Webb, and Tyler in New York. Please join me in welcoming our speaker this afternoon, Mr. Peter Harvey.
Of course, Brother Roderick Thompson didn't tell you that King's mentor at Morehouse was an Omega. Benjamin E. Mays, who really turned his life around, as Omega men have a tendency to do with all whom we touch. So, by the way, it's not too late for you. You can repent now. Thank you all for having me, Dean Ammons. I'm really honored to be here at Widener School of Law, and I'm really honored to share a few thoughts with you, and I hope they're helpful. And we can talk about some of them later. But let me frame this context for you. As I was looking at some of these photographs of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it reminded me of how sanitized his life has become. If you give attention to the King Day celebrations, most of them show a man who did a couple of marches. He's described as a dreamer. He gave a speech on the Mall in Washington, and at the end of it all, the walls of segregation came tumbling down. And of course, nothing could be further from the truth. His was a life of struggle, of difficulty, of depression, of frustration, of angst. And the King that we know is only a life of 14 years. By the time he arrived at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, by the way, Dexter King Baptist Church now, he was 25 years old and he was dead by 39, assassinated on a balcony in Memphis. Talking 14 years, that's it. So he packed a lot in that 14 years. His house was bombed in Montgomery. He failed in Albany, Georgia to desegregate that city. He failed in St. Augustine, Florida. He failed in Chicago with the powerful Daley machine that almost ran over him. And yet, through it all, he continued his focus. You see, your life is not going to be easy, because no one's life whom we admire is easy. You pick anybody you want in history, woman or man, and you show me somebody who's accomplished something in this world, and I'll show you somebody who fought and clawed and worked through it. Some days they had successes, other days they had failures. But they kept getting up. You show me somebody who's been successful in this life, and I'll show you somebody who was encouraged by mentors, by others who cared about them. They were encouraged because we all need it. Only the fool thinks that she or he got somewhere by her or himself. It's impossible. You can't. You get through life because you have people who care about you, who invest in you, and who cover your angle, who push you along. And on your worst days, they tell you, it's going to be all right. I believe in you. As a very close friend of mine in New Jersey says all the time, he says, you know, Peter, us Italians all got to stick together. I said, I absolutely agree. Because what he's talking about is a shared love, a shared existence, and a shared camaraderie. And don't think for a minute you're going to get there alone. Don't think for a minute that the people who will help you will all look like you, or all be of your same class and gender and race. They won't be. Because many people in this life are struggling with how to live a better life and how to be good people. And your task is to find them and connect with them and build your circle around them and to walk this life with them and watch what happens. You get many surprises along the way. You get many unanticipated opportunities. And my life is an example of it. So you see, when King wrote Why We Can't Wait, which is the theme of today's program, he wrote that in 1964. He wrote it after John F. Kennedy had been assassinated, and he wrote it 10 years after the decision in Brown versus Board of Education. By the way, the great Judge Robert L. Carter just died 2 weeks ago. He was 94 years old. And it is commonly misunderstood that Thurgood Marshall argued Brown versus Board of Education. He didn't. Robert Carter, as a young lawyer with the NAACP, tried that case in Topeka, Kansas. He argued it in the 10th Circuit, and he argued it in the Supreme Court and won it. In fact, he won 21 of 22 arguments before the U.S. Supreme Court. It was Robert Carter, as a lawyer, who decided and persuaded the team to use the doll study. You know the doll study, where they showed young children white dolls and black dolls, asked them which they preferred, and black children always picked the white doll because they associated that with all of the finer qualities in life, and they rejected the black doll. He found Kenneth Clark to analyze that and put that before the Supreme Court as further evidence of the impact of segregation. And there were 5 cases that came up to the Supreme Court, one of which was from Delaware, because in this state, all of 3 counties, all the African Americans in the southern part of the state had to drive to Wilmington to go to high school because they couldn't go to high school in this state. So he wrote Why We Can't Wait to set the agenda for the urgency of action. And if King was anything, he was certainly courageous. He was frustrated that 10 years after Brown versus Board of Education, there was no remedy. By the way, Brown is an extraordinary case because it's the first time, and maybe the only time, in Supreme Court jurisprudence where the Supreme Court found a constitutional right and gave no remedy. It had to be argued twice. The attorneys general of many states came back for Brown 2 to argue the remedy. And the AGs argued that most states would close their schools. And in fact, Virginia did. Virginia closed their public schools for a year. And so the Supreme Court ultimately decided that integration would occur with all deliberate speed, which is why you got that language. It was a compromise that frustrated people like King, because what it gave rise to was something called the pupil placement law. Many states began passing them, where the school board could select the pupils that would go in which classes and which schools. And how do you think they did that in 1964? The point is that if King is anything, he was courageous. I looked at this photo that you had up earlier of King in the White House with President Johnson in the background. It was one of the last times he was in the White House, because in Easter of 1967, he spoke at the Riverside Church, and he gave a speech challenging America's policy in the Vietnam War, and he was a front runner on these issues, way ahead of anyone else. He called America at that time the greatest purveyor of violence in the world, and everybody turned on him. Everybody turned on him. Every major civil rights group ran for cover. The president never invited him back to the White House. The New York Times attacked him arguing that he should stay in the narrow confines of civil rights. Now, mind you, this was the winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, shaping an argument about world peace, being attacked by people in his own nation who said, you have no business in American foreign affairs as an American and as an international peace figure. And he moved to economic justice. And he never, of course, got an opportunity to finish that task because he was assassinated in Memphis. Wasn't the first attempt on his life. So I framed this out to you because your life is going to be filled with lesser challenges, but important nonetheless. And there's going to be magic that happens in your life. There are going to be surprises because it's happened in mine. It's going to happen in yours. I'm looking right now at judges, at legislators, at business executives, at in-house counsel, lawyers. I'm looking right now at partners at major law firms. That's who you will become. You don't know it now. But there will come a point in your life where your classmates and colleagues and your friends will be nominated for a federal judgeship. They'll be elected to a state judgeship. They will go in to be some major government official in state government, national government, in international affairs. I've got no good reason to have been in the Northeast, let alone New Jersey. I grew up in Tuskegee, Alabama. I went to college at Morgan State. I went to law school at Columbia. I clerked for a federal judge in New Jersey. I came back to New York to practice in labor, antitrust, and general commercial litigation. I went to the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey for the simple reason that I wanted to learn to try cases. There was a partner who, in my law firm in New York, who had tried a case, and at some point the judge called him to sidebar and said, "Is this your first trial?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "That'll never happen to me." I said, "I got to get out of here. And I got to get out of here fast." And I was married in my second year of law school with a daughter. And we had just bought a house. My second kid was born, and I was taking a $30,000 pay cut. Most people in the firm thought I lost my mind. In fact, my wife thought I lost my mind. I probably had lost my mind. But I went in because I said, I gotta develop skill. I talked to Nick Katzenbach once. Nicholas Katzenbach, you may recall, was the United States Attorney General. But you'll most recognize that name, I suspect, from George Wallace standing in the door at the University of Alabama. The man who approaches him on behalf of the Department of Justice was Assistant Attorney General Nicholas Katzenbach. Nick and I were partners at a law firm in New Jersey. And we were having a conversation about young lawyers and lawyering. And Nick made an observation that I thought was insightful. I said, "What do you think is the challenge of young lawyers now?" He said, "Peter, a lot of lawyers get a lot of jobs, but they don't develop substantive expertise." Said they don't really know something, but they have a lot of great jobs and a lot of great positions, and I thought it was very insightful. Because that's why I had left the law firm in New York, to learn to do something. And so I left to become a special assistant to an attorney general in New Jersey. I worked on New Jersey's assault weapons law. I wrote most of it. We were only the second state in the union to pass it. We actually banned it. California didn't. California imposed a ban but gave you a year to buy it. So what do you think people did? They drove 80 miles an hour to the Western Union. You even had 70-year-old men and women buying Uzis because they could. And so they loaded up. We banned them and said, you got to get them out of the state. But I then went into private practice, did banking and other kinds of litigation. I also did copyright and trademark kind of litigation. And these are the kinds of opportunities you'll get to. Some guys walked in my office one day. Actually, a friend from college walked in my office one day and said, "Look, I've got these guys. They worked on a record, and they're getting hosed. I said, so tell me about it. He said, well, they did work on this record. It's about to come out. It's going to be a blockbuster, and they're not being paid. And they were told they would share credit, royalties, and they would share the money, but they care more about the credit and the royalties. I said, okay. We met. I believed them, wrote a complaint, got into a firestorm of litigation with a big record company. The record was nominated for 5 Grammys, actually more than that, about 7 Grammys. And it was a dogfight in the federal court in Newark. The artist with whom, by the way, these were her friends. They were co-writers and co-producers. The artist who deprived her friends of this credit was Lauryn Hill. The record was The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. When I took her deposition, there had to be 12 lawyers on the other side of the table. It's not, no kidding. There were 12 lawyers on the other side of the table. Every record company, every publishing company, every artist, every individual in that case. But this was Nick's point. You have to learn, have a substantive expertise, and litigation was something that I knew. I also knew strategy. She was the focal point. So you get these opportunities. Then, of course, I went to the Attorney General's office at some later point. So the challenge for you, if I may be so bold as to put it to you, is how do you find the intersection between your interest and your abilities? Where is that crossroad? What are you good at? And what do you really like? What do you like so much that it doesn't even feel like work? It's almost like a hobby. You can read it. You can think about it. You know, anybody who's good at anything does it most of the time. And while someone else might say, how do you do that? You say, because I like it. And that's what makes you good at it. That's what makes most people good at it. So what is it going to be for you? Is it going to be finance? Going to be housing? Is it going to be employment? Is it going to be, what is your substantive area of law? Patents? And how do you learn to do it? And then how do you infuse in what you do the social responsibility that you're thinking about now? You don't have to say, well, when I was in law school, I really cared about that. Don't worship money. And here is why. It's an empty life. You'll buy things and you'll throw them away. What's my evidence of that? Go check your parents' attic. Plenty of stuff there. You had to have. This Christmas, I must get this. And where is it now? If you can find it. It's junk. Every car you buy will get old. And there'll be a new one to take its place. So that hot whip that you're in now, somebody else 2 years from now is going to be in the new one, and you're going to be old news. It's true for clothing and everything else. So it's an empty existence. I'm not arguing against being successful financially. I am arguing against being as arrogant in your consumerism as the people we see with the bling, and we say, why is he wearing that? It's being ostentatious just because you can. What is your social responsibility? Do you go to a firm that has 100% pro bono? Do you care about pro bono? It's okay if you don't, but at least be honest with yourself about it and be courageous about it. Do you care about Habitat for the Humanity? Habitat for Humanity. Do you care about young people? You see, when I got to the Attorney General's office, one thing I knew I would do is take issues of broad application, but had particular impact on poor people. So I paid a lot of attention to violence and why. You know, I was looking at statistics last night. Do you realize in Pennsylvania last year, there was something like 169 people killed in domestic violence incidents? I mean, killed with guns, strangled. They were, you know, run over by cars, burned. Children, some of the perpetrators were in their 70s and 80s. Some of the victims were in their 70s and 80s. There is an epidemic of violence that's going on that must be addressed. And so, can you fit in that space? Maybe in the sexual assault world, maybe in the domestic violence world, maybe in the youth violence world. And you know what's going on in Philadelphia because some places they call it Philadelphia. And so how do we fit with compassion, with love, with certainty? You have to find that space for yourself. And you can find it. You can be socially responsible and economically successful. The two are not mutually exclusive. You don't have to trade one off for another. You can be involved in your college and helping it raise money for scholarships so young people choose education rather than a life on the streets. You can be involved in your law school. And I hope all of you, when you graduate from Widener, will give it money. Because everybody can afford to give something. Yeah. Give it some money. I mean, look at it this way. Look at all the money you spend in Chinese food, at Netflix, at McDonald's. Look at all the crap you spend, you know, at the bar. You can break off $200 and send it to Widener. The point is you get into a consistent method of giving. My point is that there are so many areas of opportunity for you to do good things. You have to make a concerted effort and make it a point of honor. It becomes a component of how you choose to live your life so that you have a high-quality life, not a low-quality life. Not like a lot of these celebrities that we read about. I know you all love the Kardashians. You love Kim and Courtney and Khloe. You like the Real Housewives of Atlanta and Nene. You like the Real Housewives of New Jersey. You like to see them fight and argue and yell. You like love and hip-hop. I know where you are. That's all nice, but do you really think these people have a high-quality life? This is a low-quality life. I don't care what their level of money is. Most of them are broke. Basketball wives, they should be called basketball jump-offs. They're not wives, you know it. It's a low-quality life. They argue over the dumbest things and fight in broad daylight. If your mama saw you behave like that, what do you think would happen? Have a high-quality life of service. It will bring you rewards beyond your imagination. It will not be easy. Yes, you will deal with people who frustrate you. Yes, you will deal with people who don't share your vision. You may have vision and they're looking through bifocals. Okay, that's how it goes. But that never stopped King. And he had to deal with people at a whole nother level. Being spied on by the FBI, having the FBI send tapes to his wife, which suggested he was with another woman in a hotel room. They knew he suffered from depression. Yes, you're going to have challenges. It's not going to be easy, but it will be rewarding. And most importantly, somewhere out there is a place where you're needed. I mean, where you are needed. Not somebody else, you. And you are bringing the right mix of intellect, fortitude, imagination, creativity that's going to solve that problem. And I tell you this, one of the greatest feelings you'll ever have in life is helping someone get through a difficult moment and they look you in the eye and say, thank God for you because I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you. That's what service is about. A good job is its own reward. You don't do the dishes in your house to call the neighbors to come over and admire how clean your glasses are. You do them because they need doing and because you like drinking out of a clean glass. It's its own reward, not for accolades, not for money. What I urge you to do is find it in your own life. Yes, you will hit plateaus where you're wondering, am I going in the right direction? That's why you have people you can rely upon to sit and talk to you about it, who give you honest advice about your abilities and your opportunities, who give you encouragement and push you along. Make your friends broadly and make them deeply. And never think that you get to the point where you don't need anybody, because that is the beginning of the end for you. I'll give you this piece of advice that my dad gave to me. Stay green and you will continue to grow. For when you ripen, you will begin to rot. And it's a warning. As long as you have a curious mind, as long as you have a quest for knowledge, a thirst for life, and you come to the realization that there's more to do tomorrow, and you're going to do a lot today, but there's still more to do tomorrow, you will continue to grow. You grow in spirit, you'll grow in intellect. And we have one of the few professions in the world, one of the few, where people actually pay you money to learn new things. But the minute you think you figured it all out, you've got it worked out, the minute you're no longer frightened about doing a good job, the minute you could care less about the person in front of you as a judge, or the person's next to you as a lawyer, or the client whom you represent, whether your client is a government agency, an individual, a private client, the minute you get to the point where you are indifferent to that, it's almost over for you. And you will not be who you want to be as you sit here now, gazing into the future, thinking about the possibilities in your life. Service, love. Combined together, they equal success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey, for challenging our students to infuse social responsibility into their lives, even as they seek this economic security that comes with a law degree. Today we have another purpose, and that is to award the annual Martin Luther King Service Award. And today we are honoring one of our own. And I'm going to ask Nadej and Vanessa to come and present our award recipient.
Good afternoon, Dean Ammons, faculty, staff, my fellow classmates, and our honoree, the Honorable Nathaniel C. Nichols. I stand here with Vanessa Gosa, who many of you know has worked as a legal assistant to the former Professor Nichols for over 25 years in the Pennsylvania Civil Law Clinic. Although I have not worked with the Honorable for as long a time, as a student in the bankruptcy clinic, I have had the opportunity to work with him on an academic and professional level. You may refer to your program to learn more about his professional biography. However, I would like to take a moment to briefly describe my personal experience while working under his supervision. I have to be honest to tell you that this was the hardest part for me to write. I thought about describing his generosity and telling you about how he has offered numerous times to take clients out to lunch, but that wasn't enough. I also thought about describing his wisdom and telling you about how he has given me great advice when I have gone to his office to discuss the infinite difficulties of law school. But that didn't satisfy me either. Finally, I decided to tell you about my most memorable moment with the Honorable. Recently, I was going through a difficult time, and I never said a word to him about it. But as a person, he cared enough to feel that I was quietly suffering. He said to me, "I don't know you that well, but I don't care." And then he prayed with me. I was speechless. You see, he truly did not know me that well, but he still cared, because Nathaniel C. Nichols always cares. My friends, I'm sure that you agree with me when I say that no one is more deserving of this year's award. And now I would like to turn it over to Vanessa.
Good afternoon. As Nadej stated, I have worked with Judge Nichols, whom we know as Nick or Professor Nichols, in his capacity as professor, director of the Pennsylvania Civil Law Clinic, and the director of clinical programs for 25 years. Judge Nichols, I say to you, thank you. It has definitely been a pleasure. For as long as I have known Judge Nichols, on a legal, professional, and personal level, he has always given 100% of whatever he does. 99.5% just won't do. I have watched him over the years provide outstanding legal services to indigent clients of Delaware County, Pennsylvania, and I must say, he had so much compassion for the clients, and he always made them feel comfortable no matter what the situation was. It didn't just stop there. His demeanor was precise across the board, inside and outside of the office. Judge Nichols is one of those people you can count on getting the job done. More importantly, he treats everyone with the utmost respect. I have to say that his patience, knowledge, dedication, loyalty, passion, drive, and commitment are just some of the qualities that attribute to him being such an outstanding individual. He has shared these qualities not only in the legal profession, but too in various capacities, such as the Board of Directors for Legal Services of Southeastern Pennsylvania, the Delaware County Bar Association, the Chester Education Foundation, Chester Upland School District, his fraternity Omega Psi Phi, and many others. As such, I think the unique qualities that he possesses has afforded him the opportunity for us to be privileged today to call him Your Honor. Nick, or shall I say Judge Nichols, we, your Widener family, realize that the time has come for you to pass the torch in a different direction in your profession. We wish you the best, and we want you to know that the flame that you lead with us will always be etched in our hearts and our minds. Can I have you all rise? Judge Nichols, I stand here before you today, January 24th, 2012, on behalf of Dean Ammon, your colleagues, students, staff, and friends, to present you with the 2012 Martin Luther King Jr. Award for your outstanding commitment to the legal profession.
Vanessa, I thought you were going to break into song. You know, that was the title of a song, 99.5 Just Won't Do. Younger folks don't know that, but that's okay. Some of the older ones know it. Well, I'm preaching to the choir. I clearly know that. But even though I'm preaching to the choir, I need to tell you about the need to continue to do service. And I'm going to do that very briefly by just asking you to look at the little bio that they have about me, and I'll explain to you what I mean. You see my service on the Domestic Violence Board and my receipt of the service award for that. That came about because in the years as the president of the board, we had issues with counselors for women who were victims of domestic violence not being able to have that counselor privilege. There was a case where the district attorney's office wanted to know what was said in that particular discussion with the counselor and the victim of domestic violence. And because the domestic violence program believed in that privilege, even though there wasn't anything in the statute at that time, they said, we won't give it to you, district attorney. That was then the executive director who risked going to jail to keep that privilege for that woman. Domestic violence affects 3 out of 5 of us. My sister is a survivor of domestic violence. So there's a need for help in the area of domestic violence. Fortunately, the privilege is now there in Pennsylvania, but there's still a need to help the victims of domestic violence. So that's where you can give help. The board of directors of the Chester Education Foundation, just pick up the paper, pick up the Inquirer. You see the issues with the Chester Upland School District. You see the problems that they have financially. You see the needs that's there so very much. We have the Chadwick Constitutional Fellowship where our Widener students teach constitutional law to students in the Chester Upland School District. And it's a wonderful program, but there is still such a need. Last year, I happened to go to the high school to meet with the students who were going to meet with the high school students for that, and I parked in an adjacent parking lot. That parking lot was next to an elementary school, next to the high school. And about 2 minutes after I parked, the police car pulled up, and they came out of that elementary school with a young man who couldn't have been more than 10 years old in handcuffs. I don't know what the situation was, but clearly there was a need to help that young man with whatever had happened in his life. So the Chester Upland School District needs your help. You also see Delaware County Legal Assistance. I started there in 1974. 2 years after I started, there was a tremendous cut in the finance of Delaware County Legal Assistance, of legal services across the nation. So the staff attorneys at that time got together and we all took pay cuts to keep the support staff from being laid off. That cut is happening again. They've had to have cutbacks in legal services. They need your help. Legal services throughout the country needs your help because of the cut in funding as well there. The Delaware County Housing Coalition, a very small nonprofit, and what they're trying to do is to help keep the area of Delaware County vital, especially in those areas of depressed housing. Chester, for example. And what they do is they'll buy a vacant house, renovate it, and sell it to a family that would normally not qualify. And as they do that, they try to help that particular community. One of the challenges they have is, as they're trying to renovate the house, it happens to be a drug area. And so what the drug dealers do is come by and put their stash in a bush. They dare not say anything to those drug dealers, but there's a need to try to make these communities whole again, to get drugs out of those communities so that low-income families can have decent housing. So there's a need there as well. And then finally, the footsteps past and present, the last paragraph, and I think I see somebody here who knows a lot about that. I see Dave. Wave your hand, Dave. Who's the past president of the Delaware County Bar Association, who was responsible for making sure we had, 150 lawyers get on buses and come to Chester to read to students in elementary school. Dave is familiar with this Footsteps Past and Present program as well. And what that program did was find points of black history that were important in the city. And there's no more important place than the Chester Courthouse, the old Chester Colonial Courthouse, where in fact it said the Constitution was first read in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, in the state of Pennsylvania. But also that courthouse goes back to 1766, where at that time there was still slavery, and where the trials of slaves were held in that courthouse. And slaves at that time could not plead innocent, could not have counsel. It was just the Attorney General for the king, Benjamin Chew. And some of the things that you saw in those records were really chilling. One slave was charged with some type of assault or something to, I guess, insult the character of a woman, a white woman. That slave was branded with an R on his forehead, whipped with 39 lashes, and banished from the colony. So there's wonderful black history in Chester, but there's also history that tells us we need to do more. No, we don't have slavery now, but we still have inequality. So my churchgoers, My churchgoers, there's still much work to do that you can do, and I speak specifically to the law students. There's much work for you to do. You don't have to choose anything that I did, but you need to choose something to make a difference. You're one of the most powerful people in this country. You can save somebody's life on death row. You can stop a bridge from being constructed through an injunction. You can save a woman from domestic violence. You can save a child who's been adjudicated delinquent. So please, make that commitment to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Nichols. Now we'll have remarks from the dean.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for coming out in support of this Martin Luther King Day celebration. I'd like to start with thank you to Professor Serena Williams and Professor Bob Heyman and the committee who put this program together. Can we give them a round of applause? To the students who are here this afternoon and to guests as well as faculty, I thank you for being here. It's a very important celebration today. You know, there's an old saying that goes this way, and I think someone alluded to it earlier, and it is, to whom much is given, much is required. We have been given much today. A rich instruction and a reminder of what our obligations are. We've been given so much, and you hear me talk about this often in other contexts, for the privilege of the practice. And I know that students, you don't have the privilege just yet, but you will. In preparation for the privilege to practice, we have an obligation as a profession to give back. And not just once, but in meaningful ways. Yes, as has already been said, law is a wonderful way to make a dollar, but you can make dollars all kinds of ways. Law, being a lawyer, being a member of this profession, is a wonderful way to make a difference. And that's what the life of Martin Luther King was about, making a difference. And for our honoree and our guest speaker today, I'm sure you can tell from the biographies and from what they've said that their lives are about making a difference. General Harvey, we thank you so much for taking time to be here. We have, would you approach the podium, please? It's all right. We have a token of our esteem, just to say thank you, to remind you of us. We have a number of students who are alums from New Jersey. I don't know if there are any students here in attendance from New Jersey. If you are, just raise your hand. All right, we have representatives here from New Jersey. And we consider ourselves the New Jersey Law School. We know that there are others there, but you've heard of a couple, but we are the New Jersey Law School. So we thank you so much for being here with us today, and we don't want this to be your last time. Absolutely. Thank you so much for being with us. And to the Honorable Nathaniel C. Nichols, welcome home, Judge. We've, through the last few weeks, have sent regards and have attended your swearing-in ceremony. We know that Delaware County is being richly blessed and privileged by the mere fact that you now sit on that bench. We have a number of other Widener alums there, but now you have filled out that bench, and we're just pleased to have had the opportunity for 20 some odd years to have you here with us. And your legacy remains. It will be one that will carry on. I want to say forever, but it does. In all of the lives that you have touched by walking these halls, by running the clinics, by teaching the classes, by all the extracurricular things that you have done, just your example is ever ensconced in the history of Widener University School of Law. So we couldn't think of a better awardee and at this time to present this award in the name of Martin Luther King Jr. With that said, we have is it in the Shrine Atrium? We have a reception in the Shrine Atrium. I thank you for coming. Welcome back to the semester and have a good day.